They built an empire behind concrete walls, an invisible kingdom, a silent, bloody war that spilled beyond prison gates to claim cities, communities, even governments. This is the story of the Mexican Mafia, La M, and how it became one of the most powerful criminal organizations in American history. The year was 1957, deep within the iron-barred corridors of Deuel Vocational Institution in Tracy, California. A small group of Hispanic inmates, tired of facing brutal treatment from other prison gangs, decided to fight back. Among them stood Luis Huero Buff Flores, a figure destined to shape the future of organized crime in ways even he couldn't foresee. In a cramped, fluorescent-lit cell, they crafted their oath: brotherhood, loyalty, violence when necessary. No betrayals, no weaknesses. They called themselves La M, the Spanish pronunciation of the letter M for Mexican. The early architects. The founding members included not just Huero Buff, but other influential figures like Eddie Sailor Boy Gonzalez and Rudy Cheyenne Cadena. Each one brought their own flavor of leadership, cunning, and brutality. Cheyenne Cadena would later be remembered for his attempts to forge alliances with other racial groups. An idea ahead of its time, and one that would have lasting effects on California prison politics. La M's ideology was clear: Mexican-American pride fused with absolute loyalty and violent supremacy over enemies, both racial and competitive. Prison politics. At the time, racial tensions in California prisons were at a boiling point. White supremacist groups like the Aryan Brotherhood and black prison organizations like the Black Guerrilla Family were emerging. La M positioned itself as the dominant Hispanic force, ready to engage in racial wars that often left yards soaked in blood. The First Blood. The first major violent act attributed to La M was the murder of a black inmate at San Quentin in the early 1960s. It was a statement, a declaration of existence, and it established La M's reputation for ruthless efficiency. Joining La M wasn't easy. It wasn't enough to simply volunteer. Recruits were observed for years, sometimes decades, to ensure absolute loyalty, intelligence, and brutality. The blood oath taken by new members emphasized loyalty above all else. Members swore eternal allegiance to La M, even beyond death. Betrayal meant execution without hesitation. Symbols and language. Tattoos became the visible badge of honor. Black hands, the number 13, a single M. These images weren't just art. They were declarations of loyalty and warnings to enemies. Communication methods evolved. Tiny notes called kites, coded messages embedded in legal mail, and hand signals known only to members ensured that La M could communicate even from solitary confinement. Structure and hierarchy. La M operated under a loose hierarchy. No official bosses, but shot callers, decision makers who issued commands based on influence, respect, and fear. Power could shift rapidly. A single act of cowardice or defiance could strip a man of his rank or his life. The green light. One of the Mexican Mafia's deadliest tools was the green light, a sanctioned death sentence. Once an individual was green lit, he could be attacked or killed by any La M loyalist, anywhere, anytime. By the 1980s, La M had transcended being just a prison gang. It was now a criminal syndicate, pulling in millions through drug trafficking, gambling, and murder for hire. But success bred arrogance, and arrogance bred betrayal. The rise of Rene Boxer Enriquez. Rene Enriquez was born into a working-class family in Los Angeles. As a teenager, he was drawn into gang life, first with Artesia 13, and then into La M. His intelligence, charisma, and brutality propelled him quickly through the ranks. Enriquez was involved in ordering multiple murders, extortion operations, and narcotics trafficking. By his late 20s, he was considered one of the most influential members of La M. The turning point. However, after years of bloodshed and betrayal within the ranks, Enriquez began to question his life. After a close friend was murdered on orders he suspected were rooted more in jealousy than strategy, he realized the brotherhood he had pledged his soul to was a lie. Facing decades in prison, he made the unthinkable choice to defect and cooperate with law enforcement. The impact. His testimony was devastating. Detailed breakdowns of La M's organizational structure, murder orders, and influence networks led to multiple life sentences for key members. Rene Enriquez became the most valuable informant ever against La M, a traitor to some, a hero to law enforcement, and a symbol of the organization's vulnerability. The 1990s saw La M shift focus. Control wasn't enough. They wanted expansion. Street taxes and governance. La M imposed street taxes on Southern California street gangs, collecting a percentage of all criminal earnings. Failure to pay meant death. Compliance meant access to the Mexican Mafia's protection and power. Entire neighborhoods were effectively ruled by La M, without the public even realizing it. Operation Carnalismo and Black Widow. Federal operations like Carnalismo and Black Widow targeted La M leadership, aiming to dismantle their grip on street gangs. Hundreds of members and associates were arrested, many facing decades in prison. The evolution of influence. Despite these takedowns, La M adapted. Orders became more encrypted. Layers of middlemen shielded leadership. Street-level operations grew more independent, yet remained loyal to the Mafia. Today, the Mexican Mafia is often spoken about in hushed tones. Modern operations. From inside supermax prisons, leaders still communicate through encrypted messages, corrupt attorneys, and smuggled phones. Green lights continue to be issued, taxes continue to be collected, murders continue to be ordered. Political influence. There have even been allegations that La M has used its influence to manipulate local elections and infiltrate legitimate businesses as a means of laundering money. A living legacy. La M has become more than a gang. It is an institution, a symbol, a warning. Behind the cold walls of America's prisons, a secret war was waged. And while the world outside moved on, La M stayed the same, hidden, patient, lethal. Their story is not just a history of crime. It's a warning. True power doesn't scream. It whispers. The real leaders don't need a seat at the table. They built the table, and they never left.